Testing.
Testing. Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me? Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Testing.
Testing.
Testing, testing. Testing. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Hi, good morning. Yes, I
Oh,
can hear
great,
you.
great. Okay, I just wanted to test. I'm using my headphones this time, my Bluetooth headphones, and it requires a little adjustment. So I'm glad that it's working. Um, so we have a few minutes before the start, and we are recording. So you can see in the background my hotel room in Nashville, Tennessee, the capital of country music. I mean, I gotta, since I decided to stay here for a number of nights, you know, I'm not a highly paid college professor. I had to go for the cheap hotel, and this hotel is next door. There's, you know, this is really a capital of the entertainment industry, one of the capitals of the entertainment industry in the United States. So just around this place, there are a number of live music venues where bands play live, and it's interesting. But this hotel is right next to one of these venues, the Scoreboard, and it reminds me of that scene from Blues Brothers, where the Blues Brothers from that film from 1980, the Blues Brothers go to a country and western bar to start singing. I went to that place last night, and it was, you know, just to check it out after I got back and I got here, and so they go. The bands play every day. Evidently, they start at noon and they go until at least 10 o'clock. So I set up my computer here in front of the on my wash basin area to get away from the door, because the band is these bands are loud, and so I think I tested with my I called my family, and it's okay. I don't think you'll be able to hear the background, but this is where I'm at. I'm speaking to you. That's why I got nice lighting. I'm at this bathroom sink water area. So where, you know, so it's probably a better place anyway, because the lighting's best here. So yeah, we're still waiting for a couple minutes for people to join. So the conference is at a big convention center, and I get a strong sense how desperate these places are for tourism money. I mean, given how badly they've been impacted over the last 2 or 3 years, over 2 years, with the even at the airports, they're just continually pushing you to spend more money. When you buy something, they ask you if you want something else, and if you say no, they still ask you again, are you sure? I had to buy a flash drive because I forgot to bring a flash drive with me. So I stopped at the airport in Fort Worth and bought a flash. I needed a new flash drive anyway. The young man working there, he just kept asking if I wanted to buy something more, but you know, so you know, people here are really nice, but I mean, this place is all about tourism, and but the Gaylord Grand Ole Opry House, that's a popular place for conventions, because I think it's got lots of places around it that are close by that are not so expensive. I mean, the price there would be just outrageously high. I can't stay there, so I'm staying at the cheapest place I could find that was in close walking distance of the convention center. But the convention, I think it already started online, but it really is going to accelerate tomorrow, my time. So if I share the screen here, just to show you, like, for example, I've got to make sure that you can see it here. See if I can share the screen. Share the screen. Yeah, so these are the online meetings are starting. Well, they started on Tuesday, supposedly, but last week. But of course, the ones I'm going to are starting on Monday. You can see that these are all online sessions, and there must be hundreds of panels. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays into the war in Ukraine, because of course this was set up long before the war in Ukraine, and but I'm sure it's going to be a big topic of discussion. And so you know, this is giving you an example of what's going on just tomorrow. And you know, this is what college professors do. Okay, it's time to start. So let me make sure that I don't forget to do the smart attendance. And so we go to Cyber Campus, and go to attendance, and I think it's probably logged out, so I have to log back in probably. Yes, log in, and log in and go here to smart attendance and got to make sure that you can see the screen. So we go here, go to smart attendance like this, and then we go to European politics and society, and of course I have to close these, and then go to smart attendance here, and then click on attendance. And so we're still technically in week 4 because the week started on the first day of class, which was a Wednesday. So we're still technically in week 4. So go to smart attendance, and your smart attendance number, once it comes up here, is 596. 596 is your smart attendance number. So I go to 596. Let me go to the chat. 596. 596. And so everybody's got the smart attendance number. Okay, so this is our short class, and of course you're reading about Greece, and you're going to read about a very popular man, Tsipras, who in the chapter on Greece, and he is the former prime minister of Greece who negotiated the oversight of an agreement with Germany and the rest of the European Union and the International Monetary Fund for a bailout for Greece when Greece was in danger of defaulting on its debts. I'm going to try this standing up, see if it makes a difference, just because I feel better. Like, I know students would prefer that they would be in classrooms. So if I feel like I'm standing up, maybe you feel more like we're in a regular classroom. So let's see how this goes. So Alexander Tsipras is the former prime minister of Greece, young man, and he came to power in the midst of the turmoil over this tremendous economics dislocation that's Greece suffered, and also Spain to a significant extent. But Greece in particular, its economy collapsed by 25%. It's by some measures, and again, these are economic statistics, the economy of Greece dropped a quarter, a decline that we haven't seen since the Great Depression. But as we also know, the statistics coming out of Greece are not often very reliable, although presumably these are. The point is that Greece was in an economic crisis, and it was in danger of defaulting on the loans that the Greek government had taken, like most governments do, in international finance by selling Greek bonds to investors who loaned the money to Greece in return for a return on their investment over 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. All governments sell these bonds to finance their budget deficit because they almost always spend more money than they take in the form of taxes. So they have to borrow to make up the difference. And Greece's budget deficit was huge. I think it reached over twice the size of the Greece domestic product at some point. That in itself is high, but of course, Japan has a public government budget deficit of over 160% of its gross domestic product, but people are not worried about Japan defaulting on its debt because the Japanese state is more effective at controlling and mobilizing and utilizing the resources of Japanese society compared to the Greek state. So again, these political crises, these economic crisis issues are fundamentally a political issue. They're fundamentally a political issue. Like, why is the Greek state so ineffective, for example, in getting Greeks to pay their taxes? Greeks are notorious, like Italians, but particularly Greeks, in not paying their taxes. Why do the Greek people, generally speaking, not all Greeks, view paying their taxes as something that you try to avoid? That paying taxes is not something you should do. That paying taxes is maybe something that's foolish, versus Japanese taxpayers or German taxpayers, since this is a course on the European Union, compare with Germany, which is the economic anchor of the European Union, and including in the euro, the currency of the European Union. And the Greek government had to negotiate a vast bailout from the European Union and the IMF, and European Central Bank to get access to over 300 billion euros, about, well, I think close to 400 billion US dollars, but 350 billion euros for a country of 10 million people, a country of just 10 million people. And most of this money had to be backed up and guaranteed, and in loans that were backed up and guaranteed by the Germans, because the Germans are, as I mentioned, the anchor of the economic system in Europe and of the euro. And the person who negotiated this loan agreement was Alexander Tsipras, who, as I mentioned, is a young man who came to power leading a new party in Greece. And this new party emerged amidst the outrage among many Greeks towards the traditional ruling parties, the socialist PASOK party, that's the acronym, and the New Democracy Party, that's a conservative party. Those are the two main parties that have dominated Greece since Greece democratized in the 1980s, well, 1970s, but joined the European Union in the 1980s, the European Economic Community at the time, and supported this new person, Alexander Tsipras, and his Syriza party. It's called Syriza Party, and so he's mentioned a lot. And I just wanted to highlight that I really like him because he is. Why do I really like him? Because he's quite smart and he's quite intelligent, and he has a lot to say that's interesting. And so, for example, he is a regular guest on my favorite podcast that I get lots of information on. If any of you are interested in this podcast, I think you might find it interesting. Here is, I think I have it here somewhere. Oh, I don't have it here. Oh, I have to look at it later. But Alexander Tsipras is highlighted a lot in, yeah, I must have gotten rid of it. But yeah, oh, here it is, just to show you what he looks like. So if we click on it here, and this, I got to go back to the share screen so you can see it. And so here he is speaking on Democracy Now, and that's what he looks like. So he's can't be old. He's younger than me, I'm sure. And here he's speaking about the failure of the European Union in dealing with the situation in Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine, and he's quite lucid and quite smart. And this is from February. He also spoke just a couple of days ago on Democracy Now. So if you're interested in hearing him, and this English is of course better than mine, and this is taking a while to spool, but you can see he come. So can you hear that? I'm curious. I don't know if you can hear what I play on YouTube, because I can hear it in my headphones. But since I don't know if that's the YouTube sound plays through when I'm sharing screen. But that's him. And so if you want to hear some interesting, useful commentary from someone who comes from a skeptical background regarding NATO and the United States involvement in Europe, you can listen to him on Democracy Now, and keep in mind that history of skeptical U.S. involvement goes back to the Greek Civil War and the Cold War that we briefly referenced earlier in the class regarding the first U.S. involvement in competitive intervention in covert competitive intervention in countries around the world, all over the planet during the Cold War, where the CIA and the KGB were battling everywhere, and they were battling covertly because of this more urgent necessity that the countries of United States and Soviet Union faced to avoid direct confrontation between themselves because of nuclear weapons, right? Because of nuclear weapons, the necessity of avoiding direct conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union, getting into a direct conflict with each other, was overwhelmingly important, because it would be suicide if they openly chose to fight each other on the battlefield. And you're hearing much discussion of this now regarding Ukraine, right? That I'm sure the Americans are helping. We all know that they're helping, and NATO is helping the fighters in Ukraine against the Russian invasion. But the Americans are not sending airplanes. They're not sending items that can be used to hit into Russia against Russian bases where the military is coming from to invade their country. They're only selling or giving to the Ukrainians, giving the Ukrainians so-called defensive weapons, anti-tank weapons fired by individual men, soldiers, carrying them on their shoulders, or firing anti-aircraft, man-launched, man-pad, they're called man-pad weapons. And if there are American personnel fighting in Ukraine, and I'm sure there are, they're doing it unofficially, covertly. They're not describing themselves as Americans. They're probably there in the covert military units of the CIA and the US Defense Department. I'm sure that they're there. And of course, there are lots of so-called volunteers. I mean, latest reports are that 50,000, I mean, that's probably outdated, but last week I read that 50,000 volunteers have gone to Ukraine to fight in Ukraine. So, but that's the important point we want to highlight, that this competition between countries to influence and control other smaller countries or weaker countries, or any country, is more and more done indirectly, including through cyber attacks. Today, now that we have the internet, which we of course didn't have during the Greek Civil War, we have the internet. Countries try to influence and dominate and control the politics, the internal politics of other countries, to influence the outcomes in the politics of internal countries by intervening covertly through their local allies, through their local friends, through their local clients who want their support, so that they can win against their own local enemies, their other local adversaries. And of course, when the Soviet Union or China or the United States aids one side in an internal conflict in any country in the world, of course, it's going to encourage the adversary of the local client of the United States to seek help from the enemy of the United States, or the adversary of the United States, Russia, or the Soviet Union during the Cold War, or China. And so we see the great powers allying with and working with the local client, the local contestants, as their local champions against the champion of the local client champion of their other great power adversary. And the more intense the conflict is between the great powers, between the biggest powers in the international system, the more interested they become in the internal affairs of Greece or Spain or Italy or Congo or Vietnam or Korea, because they're concerned that their big power enemy is going to expand their influence in that smaller country, Korea, Vietnam, Greece, Cyprus, wherever. So this is how great powers fight their battles in the nuclear era. They fight their battles indirectly by intervening, competitively interfering in the internal politics of third countries, because they want to make sure that their big power enemy doesn't dominate that smaller, weaker country. So. And once again, to repeat myself, that this was the way the Cold War was fought. When the Americans came to believe, rightly or wrongly, the Soviet Union wanted to try to do with what Hitler's Germany tried to do, that the Soviet Union was a Russian version of Nazi Germany, the Americans became involved everywhere in order to stop the spread of Soviet influence. In this nuclear setting, and this nuclear setting, of course, continues to the present. And again, just because only several countries have declared that they have nuclear weapons or are known to have nuclear weapons, even though Japan and Germany do not have nuclear weapons, they could make them in 42 hours. So this is a fact. This is they could make them in 48 hours. I'm sorry, in 2 days, in 48 hours. Germany could have nuclear weapons by our next class if they wanted them. Same with Japan. So, and this is the environment in which we live in today, that war is too costly for the great powers. It's also too costly for the weaker countries, but the great powers still are in competition with each other. And so like the way the Americans fought the Vietnam War, you're seeing the Americans will not fight directly the Russians in Ukraine, but they are giving lots of aid, and along with their allies, to the Ukrainians that the Russians are well aware of course. And of course are also probably stereotyping and viewing with increasing fury as their plans to dominate Ukraine appear to fail due to their stereotyping. And this is like a factor we talked about earlier, right? That countries that are nation states, they tend to see the world, their surrounding environment in terms of threats and opportunities to their country. They tend to stereotype the sources of those perceived threats and opportunities. That's how they understand the world. And then they also, thirdly, they tend to overestimate their power capabilities. So, of course, Putin's Moscow evidently grossly underestimated the power capabilities of the Russian nation. They didn't see they didn't see Ukrainian nationalism and national morale as high as it could be, as it is, because clearly this is turning out to be more difficult than the Russians self-justifyingly deluded themselves into believing. So. But again, to go back to Greece, that Greece was one of the first countries where this direct competition of the Cold War in the nuclear setting had its impact. And for many Greeks, like for many Koreans and many Vietnamese, this was very, of course, disillusioning, because the Greek Communist Party was advocating radical change and in the midst of the suffering and desperation and the failures of the Greek monarchy, the Greek aristocratic government under the monarchy, and revolution seemed to be the answer to the social and economic and political injustices for many Greeks who are not the rich and powerful and dominant in Greece. And by intervening in the Greek Civil War, first by the British and then by the CIA taking over that intervention, this disillusioned many Greek nationalists because of they never really had a full revolutionary period by which Greek popular participation and therefore ownership, perceived self-ownership of the state by the Greek people, would become part of an institutionalized reformed Greek state. Do you see what I'm trying to say? The Americans and the British, like they did in Vietnam, like they evidently did in Korea, and like they did elsewhere, tended to ally with the conservative traditional authorities in those countries because they were anti-communist. They were not radicals. And Americans, because they are nationalistic, they tended to perceive anybody during the Cold War who was talking in socialist terms about land reform, about taking land from the rich, prosperous aristocrats and giving it to the peasants. That person is a socialist or a communist. If they're not a communist, they're a fool that's basically doing Stalin's work for him. And since you're reading a chapter on Spain this week, on this regard, let me point out, I in the past, I've done some other work for some other institutions, and I had a student who was taking a course who evidently was in Spain, and he told me one of the biggest recipients of common agricultural policy subsidies from the European Union was the Spanish aristocracy, because the Spanish aristocracy, the traditional aristocrats ruling Spain under the monarchy, the dukes and the counts, those people, those aristocrats, they still own vast amounts of land in Spain that they inherited over generations. And so since the European Union provides subsidies to farmers in these different countries, these rich Spanish aristocrats also get lots and lots of common agricultural policy subsidy money from the European Union. And the Spanish Civil War under Franco kept those people in power by suppressing the militant radicals who wanted revolutionary change in Spain and were suppressed by Franco, who was supported by Hitler and Mussolini. And then the Americans, during the Cold War, they didn't like Franco because Franco was openly a fascist, and Stalin wanted him removed, but the Americans would not acquiesce to removing Franco from power. And then the Americans came to support Franco. Generalissimo Francisco Franco in Spain because he was anti-communist. The Catholic Church supported him. This is before the church liberalized. The church really endorsed the Franco's regime. And so since he was anti-communist,